Well, ladies and gentlemen, hello and greetings. Mike Falkenstine here with 1A Catalyst. I am so happy to be the first one to welcome you to this very special edition of Missions Talk. I'm here again with my good friend Steve Schirmer and a friend of ours from India. And so, Steve, we do want to sort of bring out the situation of what is happening with COVID in India. Very, very dire situation. Obviously, we want to be able to bring to people's attention not only what is happening just for the sake of the facts, but also we do want to know, bring to their attention, people's attention, how people can be praying, and maybe some ways to be involved. And so, Steve, do you want to be the one to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, so welcome everyone. So today's a little bit more of a solemn episode, unlike some of ours. The situation in India, if you've been reading on it on social media, on the news, it's pretty dire. I mean, there was a point where they thought they were not going to be hit or slammed by the COVID virus. And then, you could say out of nowhere, there's guesses on how it started, but man, it just skyrocketed in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the cases, right.
To the highest levels of any country in the world in terms of daily cases. So, Mike and I could definitely speak to this. We've looked at it a lot. I look at it daily. Multiple times every day just to know what's going on. But we wanted to bring someone from India, a friend of ours, not just someone we've met on social media, but someone that we've met in person, we've spent time with on numerous occasions. And we wanted to bring our friend Shivanshu here with us. So welcome, Shivanshu, to Missions Talk. And
hi, thank you for having me.
To get us started, why don't you just introduce yourself? And then we'll get into some of the questions.
Sure. So I stay in Delhi, born and raised in Delhi, and I have a business here now. I came to know the Lord in 2004, originally from a Hindu background, and all of my family, they are still practicing Hindus. I have a wife and I have a 9-year-old son, who both of them are believers. And I have a business. I have a juice shop, which I try to use for the glory of the Lord. Always looking for an opportunity to share Jesus with people around or make contacts which lead to sharing of the gospel in the future.
Thanks, Shivanshu. I've actually been to his juice shop. I've been able to meet his family. I think, Mike, have you been there? I can't remember exactly. I know you've been with him, but have you been to his home or anything?
No, I don't think we got a chance to do that. The juice shop sounds great, though. I can't wait to give it a try. The main time that Shivanshu and I spent together really was in the car. He drove us to Agra, I think, to see the Taj Mahal. So we got some good time together there. And but no, I can't wait to try some of the juice from the juice shop.
You're most welcome anytime. Right now it's closed, as is the Taj Mahal.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I can only imagine. So Shivanshu, I'm wondering, we were talking today about the situation with COVID in India. And so give us kind of the very broad view of what exactly is happening. You had just told me before we started this recording that essentially every family in one way or another, that about is being affected. So give us sort of the, of course we're hearing these media reports about what's happening, but give kind of a real time what is happening really with COVID in India right now?
Yeah, so the current numbers, yesterday in the past 24 hours, we have had around 400,000 new cases of COVID positive in India, just in 24 hours. And in Delhi, there has been around 30,000 new cases. And these are the official numbers which are released by the government. in India, the death toll is well above 200,000 now.
And Steve, I think you were the one that you either tweeted out or sent out on Facebook that you had read something about that 1 out of every 2 tests, COVID tests right now, is actually turning out to be positive. Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
Well, I heard a report out of Calcutta that it's 50% positivity on the test. And, you know, and then I've read reports. I think there was a NBC report of, they were interviewing a guy on the street who makes about $1,000 a month. And he was willing to spend his whole monthly salary just to get one vaccine shot. That wasn't even for both of them. That was just for one. And obviously that wasn't an approved government-sponsored location. It was more of a black market situation, but the guy was desperate, and he was desperate for his family, and he was willing to do whatever he had to do. So there's obviously a lot of hopelessness, I would assume, a lot of fear. I mean, apart from, I guess I would like to know, just both within the community as well as the non-Christian community, like, how are people feeling? Not so much how are they responding, like how Christians are responding just yet, because we're going to get to that, but just how are they feeling?
Yeah, there is a real sense of helplessness because, as I said, you know, every family that I know of, all of my relatives, there is at least one person affected in every family, including the church which I am a part of. All of the families, without exception, have someone who is sick. Now, they might not be very serious, but, you know, everyone has been touched by this. And so the people who have had someone, a family member, who has developed serious lung problems because of COVID, I think they are the ones who've really been, they've had a taste of, you know, that helplessness and that inability to do anything. Because of that condition and because the situation is so so dire.
Wow.
The pictures we see in the news of what's happening on the streets. I mean, how accurate are the news reports of people dying on the street, people just being left without oxygen, things like that? Could you speak to that as well?
Yes, so I have one of my relatives. He's actually the brother of my sister-in-law, like my elder brother's wife, her brother. He developed pneumonia just yesterday and he was searching for a hospital. And today, my nephews, they went around the city looking for a hospital bed and they were not able to find one. And they were telling me that the situation is, you know, worse than what the media is showing, because there are long queues of people outside. People are, you know, they just want to get inside the hospitals, but they don't have beds available. And then the number of doctors available to the number of patients. That is, I think, something which the media has not talked about, that even if the government has been able to add number of beds to a hospital, the medical staff has remained the same.
Oh, right.
So the kind of attention which was needed for every patient, you know, the regular monitoring, they specifically mentioned that forget about oxygen. They don't even have monitors available, which, you know, monitor the vitals of the patient. So there is no space. Some little space which is available is filling up real fast because there is a long queue of patients waiting outside, and all of them are very critical.
Shivanshu, I just want to thank you for giving us that perspective, because it does sound like what we're hearing in the news is true, but then it's also kind of goes beyond that, right? I've seen, you know, videos and news reports of, you know, people literally just weeping outside of the hospital, wanting to get in, wanting to get treatment, and not being able to do it. And so, you know, I would, the heart just breaks. And so, obviously for all those watching, continue to be praying for India and for this COVID situation there. Shivanshu, I am interested to know, based on kind of what you're seeing and what you know about this, how is the body of Christ responding to this crisis? Gosh, I would have to think you could just go to any hospital and outside and begin sharing Christ with them. I mean, it is sometimes when people are most desperate and fearful that, there is hope, right? That we have as believers in Christ. And so speak to a little bit about the ministry opportunities. What are you seeing in terms of how the Christian church is stepping in and being involved here?
Well, from what I know, there are numerous opportunities, as there always is an opportunity to share gospel in a place like Delhi or in India. But the church has not really been able to do anything, because for the past year, in any case, the church has not been meeting.
Oh, right.
In India, it's been almost more than a year since there have been no local church gatherings. And even small groups, very few of them have been meeting. I do believe that there are certain individuals who have this burden of sharing the gospel, who have been trying to help people in other ways, and at the same time, share with them, because their needs are so urgent at the moment that just going and sharing with them at this point of time or outside in a hospital might not be, a very sensible thing to do. But right now, their immediate needs need to be focused on. I think what this will do, and what it has done in the past, this pandemic, it has given people more opportunities of having deeper conversations with people about eternity, about God.
Oh, right.
And because people have experienced this, they are now more sensitive, and they are thinking more about what happens if we die. A very cliched question of sharing the gospel is, where would you go if you die tonight? Or what happens to you if you die tonight? And I think that is a question that people are now more willing to engage with because of this pandemic. Right. It is something which they have very nearly experienced themselves.
Right. I mean, when that possibility is so real, I can see where they may be more open to talking about what happens when we die, right?
Yes. So definitely the church has many opportunities. I am not aware of any, exclusive stories or anything that I have seen. But the church has come together in praying for, the situation in the city and in the country.
Okay. So, Shivanshu, that brings up a couple more side questions. One being, if the local church has not been meeting, are most of those churches that you know about, are they meeting online still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, they have online meetings.
Okay. And so, so I'm glad to hear that at least those churches that you know about are, they're continuing to receiving some teaching from the Bible. And boy, I really hope that in that online meeting, part of the conversation would be, we have this opportunity to really do ministry, and that they would. I know it's going to be hard to gather because, again, if most families are being affected, in some ways you want to just take care of your family. It's hard to then think about, being outward focused when you're so inward focused. But I'm glad to hear that there are some ministry opportunities. So, and hopefully that'll continue to grow. I'm curious to know also, for those of us who are not in India, is there any way we can step in and help and be involved? Maybe that might just be through prayer, right? But what is it that those of us who have a heart for India and have a heart for the gospel, what can we be doing to come alongside you all at this time?
Your prayers are definitely the primary need. And also, if you know someone who is affected, or if you know a family who is affected, I think in times like these, we see the best side of people and we see the worst side of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things which has happened is that the medicine and the oxygen cylinders, the oxygen concentrators, all the equipment which is needed for a patient, their cost has grown exponentially, and many of those things are not available without paying something extra to the person who is holding them. And so I think any kind of financial support which you could extend to someone who is affected, that would help a lot, because many of the people, they are just not able to afford even a basic thing like an oxygen cylinder, which cost like $150, is now selling for upwards of $800, $900.
Wow. Yeah, that cost has gone up quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yes.
I want to add to that, Shivanshu. There's actually a couple of things I want to bring up, but let me address that specific thing. So, as you know, last year when the pandemic started, it was at least on my side, the effort was more about helping some of the migrants who have lost their jobs, and just food and water and things like, we even, thanks to some donors, we were able to buy out your shop one time and get all that stuff to the people who needed it, not too far from you. So this time I've been struggling with what do we do, especially from the U.S. And I just haven't sensed that that's the same thing that we need to do this time around. But when you said that just now, that made absolute sense, of people they're desperate. Like you said, they can't afford oxygen, but if they had the money, maybe we could find something. There's always something somewhere, even though I know there's a lack of it on so many levels. So, I just want to say this, so anyone who's watching, and we'll put up a link in the show notes, we'll put it on the screen. But if anyone wants to donate money, then we'll be taking it through Silk Road Catalyst, and we'll be working to do what Shivanshu just said. Now, we're not going to just do random people on the street, just anyone we can find. We're going to try and, depending on, whatever the limitation we have with the funds, we're going to try and be more focused in terms of getting it to people we're connected to, getting it to people that are connected to our contacts, who are believers and are actively engaging with those people. Those would be first priority before we move on to that. So if anyone wants to donate, we'll definitely take money for that and help as those needs arise, as we're made aware of them. So before I get into another question, I want to ask you about something else you said, but is there anything else you can think of that the global church can do that, even if they don't have money to give or something, that they still want to serve India in some way?
I would like to share just in brief. One of the concerns for the majority of the population here in India, them being Hindus, is that now they are not even able to perform the last rites for their family members who have been deceased, because the bodies are just being given in a body bag, and many of these people who are they're not even handing over the bodies to the family members. They are being taken straight to the crematoriums, and by sometimes the driver of the ambulance or other healthcare workers, they are the ones who are just performing the cremation. Now, why that is important is because if the last rites are not performed properly, the rebirth of the person gets affected by that.
Hmm.
And even relationship with God, just to put it briefly and oversimplify it, their relationship with God gets affected if the last rites are not performed properly. And so you see that, the people, they are desperate in a way. It's a works-based religion. And when they are not able to do those things, it makes them worried. And I think why I share that is for your listeners, for the viewers, if any of them have been in two minds whether it is worth, sacrificing or making compromises to become a missionary to a place like India, it just it comes down to that it is worth, because the people are in so much desperate need. They are worried about their relationship with God, but it's just that some of them have not heard it, some of them have not believed it, some of them, maybe it's not put to them in clear terms, that it is not based on what you can do, but it's based on what Jesus did already. Such a beautiful message, it's a freeing message, it's a liberating message, and it needs to be shared. No matter what the price, we pay for it. If we can share with people, that is of utmost importance.
That's right.
That's a good segue into a question I want to ask about about a question Mike asked earlier and your answer. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, Shivanshu, but you have your testimony online.
Yes.
And I remember earlier this year, you were telling me between, I think it was November and the end of January of this year, it's been viewed at that time over 700,000 times.
Wow.
And I don't even know how, I haven't even looked, from, February 1st to today. But, in it, you talk about your life in Hinduism prior to Christ. You talk about coming to Christ and your life after Christ, and you're sharing the gospel. And so, I bring this up because one of my prayers lately I don't even know what sparked it, has been, considering the situation in India, I get that it's hard just to say, it's easy for someone like, maybe like us, who is sitting in a little bit better situation, to say, just go out there and share, go out there and meet people. But when you're in the thick of it, you're having to think about a lot of things, just like when we were in the thick of it last year, my in-laws, who are both in their 90s, live with us, and we had to think about them and everything we did. So my prayer has been creativity, that God would give a creative mind to believers, and how they live and how they share the gospel, how they serve, because we do live in a digital world. There are creative ways, and just like your testimony online, it is definitely getting to people. And you mentioned just how desperate people and hopeless people feel, that they're beginning to ask questions. What happens when I die? What if I die today? I mean, what is that? That's a evangelism explosion question. That's like the heart of
it is
evangelism explosion. What's going to happen if you die today? And regardless of how religious someone is, when they're faced with death, and I would think everyone in India today is thinking about death. And they're probably thinking, and some are going to be thinking, is what I believe really true? Why isn't I'm praying to this idol? Why isn't it doing anything for my family? Why are these people around me I'm close to dying? Why are some of these young people in the hospital? And I know I can't answer the question. I don't know why things happen the way they do, but what are your thoughts to that? I don't mean to put you on the spot about your testimony, but what are your thoughts about that in terms of the church in India being more creative and engaging in something like that?
I think if the burden is there from the Lord to reach out to the lost, I think then the Lord does open doors uh, for people, because if you have that burden, then you feel that unrest inside that you need to do something. And I think definitely the church, the mainstream church, is very complacent. I don't mean it to be a blanket statement, but most of them are. It's a small community which is scared even to meet together, forget about going out and sharing the faith. We hear of all these reports on Christmas that uh, people have come and said, you celebrate inside, you're not going outside. A few years ago, people used to go out and sing carols. Now there are many political groups who are prohibiting that, and so I think all those things have contributed to fear, amongst the church. But then there are people who do find ways, and I think that's something which needs to be encouraged even more for the local church to really understand its calling and the Great Commission.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shivanshu. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to his testimony. He has an English and a Hindi version, so I'll put both of them in the show notes. So so I just encourage you to go listen to it. And it's the Hindi one that's gotten so many views. And
yeah, on Facebook. Yeah.
And so just keep praying that God will continue to use that video, that testimony he has on there. So, Mike, you have any final thoughts for us today?
Yeah, well, I'm very thankful, Shivanshu, that you've been able to come and shed some light on, what exactly is happening. And certainly it will only deepen my heart for India, and the prayer time will increase. And I would just encourage everyone to be praying. And I would, Steve, thanks for being willing to set up a little, fund for these, friends that we know and people who are doing gospel work there. And I would just encourage everyone to, contribute a little something, and, know that that's going to be going to, real tangible needs that these dear friends have. So, Steve, that would be kind of my final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts?
Shivanshu, I just appreciate you taking the time today. I know it was last minute. We just asked you this morning to do this. So I definitely appreciate it. Appreciate you giving us your perspective and, the viewpoint you have, because we definitely want the people, especially here in the West, to have a better understanding. I would say for those who are watching, the reason I post so much about this right now on social media, and the reason we're doing this video, it's so easy being 8,000 miles away to just be in a mode of out of sight, out of mind.
That's right.
So let's not bother with it. It's not our country. It's their country. But reality, there are, who knows, a couple of million people in the U.S. from India. And every single one of them is impacted by what's happening in India, even though they're in the U.S. So I would encourage you this. This just came to mind. So apart from giving, apart from praying for what's happening, I would encourage you. Almost every community has someone from India in it. I know mine does. And if you know someone, if someone's on your street, in your community, at your church, your workplace, I would encourage you to reach out to them just to see how they're doing. Because even though they're here, they're still impacted by what's going on over there. They've still got family. It's like when the hurricane hit Puerto Rico a couple of years ago. My wife, her family are from Puerto Rico. They were born and raised there. And we weren't there, and we weren't impacted by it directly. But because my wife has family on the island, it did impact us. And we did appreciate when people reached out to ask how we were doing, how our family was doing. So I would just encourage you, even if you don't have a strong relationship with them, but you do interact with them, ask them about their family. And every chance you get, just keep going back to them. Don't do it. Just don't do one time, check off the box and move on and say, oh, I cared about India. Do it regularly.
That's really good word, Steve. I appreciate that. That's yeah, I'll be doing that for sure because we have several neighbors who I know are from India. So, Shivanshu, as we end this episode, any last thoughts or comments from you?
Yeah, it's just that we look at a very uncertain future, but through knowing the Lord Jesus, we are comforted
Mm.
that, greater is He that is with us than he that is in the world.
Amen.
And so there is this worship song, right? Because He lives, I can face tomorrow.
That's
And I
right.
think that's what's been going on in, especially in the minds of believers. It's true that we face an uncertain future, but we have our comfort through Jesus.
Well, Shivanshu, thanks for sharing that. We certainly will, I'm glad you had that perspective, and I'm really, I can imagine that does give you peace and comfort. And so please know we will continue to pray. If you have new needs or prayer requests, be sure to, let us know, probably through Steve. And I want to thank everyone for watching. Obviously, this is a real opportunity for us to step up and really be praying for our dear brothers and sisters in India. So I appreciate your watching. And yeah, we'll look forward to having you with us on the next episode of Missions Talk.